Hope you guys can see this. Look at this crap. You see that? Alright. Wait, there's more to this. What is that about? Well, they don't look like UFOs. Oh, this isn't good. But it's not like we didn't know something was gonna happen. She heard a jet fly over, she went outside and looked. Now everybody knows about it. Let's see, is there anything more? Yeah, some scary stuff, but we all said shoot it down if that's what happened. Lord be with us today. Boom, boom, boom. So eggs.
All right, so let's talk about eggs, shall we? Let's put all our eggs in this basket tonight. So could the chicken and the egg crisis be related to COVID treatments? This is a crazy story, and we're going to present you with some news and let you connect the dots.
Let me get my pen.
Because this is one of those things where it could easily go off the rails. You can say, Clayton's crazy.
Oh, we know you're a lunatic, but we love you.
Only my wife gets to say that.
Oh, sorry.
We're not saying that these things are in any way related, but we're not saying that either. So we're going to present these things to you, and then you can draw your own conclusions. 2 years ago, studies began to show that egg yolk antibodies could act as a neutralizing agent against COVID. Eggs are healthy. Wow, wait a minute. Eating egg yolks, natural stuff, could actually help me against COVID? Interesting. Studies began to show this. Not me, studies started showing this. From the Journal of the International Immunopharmacology...
Immunopharmacology.
From the Journal of International Immunopharmacal. Okay, so it's misspelled here in my notes. Anyway, from the Journal of International Immunopharmacology. I'm not a doctor, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So that is the journal that published this. Can you imagine being the receptionist that has to answer the phone every time? Thank you for calling International Immunopharmacology. This is Janice. Can I help you? Hold on. Can I put you on hold? Hold on 1 second. Hello. Thank you for calling International Immunopharmacology. I guess you'd probably get pretty good at it after about 20 minutes, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So here is their article. Here is what was published in January of 2021. Here is the study, in case you want to find it for yourself. You can read it. And here is the abstract. So I'm going to read just this section here in blue. We investigated, this is from the study, we investigated the neutralizing effect of anti-spike S1 on SARS-CoV-2 pseudovirus, as well as its inhibitory effect on the binding of the coronavirus spike protein mutants to human ACE2. Our results show that the anti-spike showed significant neutralizing potency against SARS-CoV-2 pseudovirus, various spike protein mutants, and even SARS-CoV in vitro. It might even be a feasible tool for the prevention and control of ongoing COVID-19, this study says, based on egg yolks. So this is a prohibitive treatment for people who test positive for COVID. Similar research was done at UC Davis last year. Researchers immunized hens with COVID vaccines and then used the yolk of their eggs and found that they produced protective antibodies and could prevent illness in humans. Here's the study so you can find it yourself. You can look it up. Hyper-immunized chickens produce neutralizing antibodies against SARS-CoV-2. That's the study. Note that these researchers did not inject humans with this immunized egg yolk yet. They just found that this is an affordable and viable option for increasing COVID antibodies. Then, all the while, eggs started disappearing. 2 weeks ago, we presented you with all manner of videos about homestead chickens not producing eggs anymore. Why? Well, first, we'll revisit that in a minute, for those of you that need some context there. But look at what is happening to professional chicken farms across the country and around the world. Here's a factory.
Well, damn.
Farms. It bills itself as one of the country's top egg
I told you,
producers.
I wanted them boiled, not
raising
fried.
over 20 million chickens for eggs.
20 million.
This is the fire that killed around 100,000 chickens. Fire happened last Saturday, and no cause has been reported yet.
I don't know. I think they got a rooster in custody right now.
Chicken in the hen house. Or rooster in the hen house.
Rooster in yeah.
Rooster in the hen house. You know, it's kind of funny that they don't have a cause figured out yet. They are very good at figuring out the causes of fires and finding out where the incendiary moment took place. Where was the ignition space? I mean, I've interviewed a lot of these firefighters over the years, and there's experts. And if you've got something that's producing 100,000 chickens, 20 million eggs, that is a huge source of revenue and jobs and infrastructure for that city. They are going to investigate this, but they can't figure it out. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, how many of the also, because we covered the story where just like all of these food places were just somehow catching fire, and a lot of them didn't have causes. Like, what happened? Nobody knows.
Oh,
Nobody knows.
I dropped
Any
a
idea?
cigarette in my
Officials
bed.
estimated 100,000 hens died in a Connecticut fire. Here's the Associated Press. Connecticut officials confirmed Monday it's one of several such fires that have killed millions of chickens around the country over the past decade.
Where are those animal activists
The
now, I
agency
wonder?
also said the impact on egg prices was expected to be minimal to none. Okay. Again, we're not saying that this is related, but we're not saying not saying that either. But here is another dot that we're connecting for you. Namely, that people who own chickens are still reporting that their hens are not producing lately on store-bought feed. So this is a follow-up to a story we brought you 2 weeks ago. And these same chicken farmers and more now are coming out saying, we are experiencing the same things. Our chickens simply are not producing eggs anymore after using the store-bought feed. Listen.
So there is a debate online right now of whether or not chicken feed and what brand you're feeding your chickens is causing them to not lay as well anymore. So I want to show you something, and you can do with this information whatever you will.
Everything your chicken
I want you
eats
to watch
gets
the
stored in
feed.
what's called their crop. There
See
it's
how it
broken down
started
so the
here
chicken can
and
pass
it's
it out of its body.
expanding.
This is another reason why grit is really important, because it helps to break
Still
those things
expanding.
down. Chickens go number 1 and number 2 from the same place. So soft.
I recorded that video last summer. I've been adding water and soaking my chicken feed since I got them, and they're about 2 years old now. The water expands the feed, it stretches it longer, you can warm it up, you can cool it down, it's easier to digest. But somewhere between summer and fall of last year, the feed quit absorbing the water. It would sit 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and a lot of it would still be in pellet form. And I'm speaking specifically about Producer Pride pellets from Tractor Supply. So I quit adding water because it was pointless, and I would give the pellets dry to my chickens, and there would be times where they would let it sit for days and not touch it. The temperatures outside had dropped, they were molting, the feed wasn't doing what I wanted it to, so I changed the one thing I had control over, and I started buying feed from a local feed store. The difference is noticeable immediately. As soon as you open the bag, because it smelled so much better. I don't know what happened to Producer's Pride at some point. It doesn't have a smell anymore. The one from the local feed store smells great, looks great, has a better color to it, and my birds love it. Now, I'm not saying this is a problem for everyone, and I don't know if they've changed their recipe. This is just my personal experience. I don't know about you guys, but on this homestead and this economy, I don't have the time or the money to invest in layers that aren't laying. So yeah, if your chickens have stopped laying, what do you have to lose? Even if you spend a little bit more money on the feed that you would have to buy to replace the feed you're currently using, I'd say it's worth it if you start getting eggs again, and especially right now.
So Cabin Girl in our chat says Tractor Supply, Purina, Nestle feed, all problems. And I see people saying in our chat room right now saying this is war.
This new veneer is bringing smiles back to millions for less than $30. So you can
I'm
have the radiant
so
smile
proud
you
of them.
deserve
Gotta
without
love
any
that how
gross
it
molds
jumped
or
commercial.
in-office visits.
I want
you
my
can even eat
channel
with
to
them
have
on.
commercials.
Just don't bite into any candy
Oh, I
apple.
can skip it.
Like this is not a
God
joke.
for that button.
I think what we're seeing is the results of Bill Gates buying up all the farmland. Like that, he is at the top of all of these lists.
Okay. Vaccines, technology, freedom of speech, dropping diseases, floating balloons over us. Bigfoot's been sighted 1 million times in the last 2 years. Phenomena are going all over our skies. Okay, just breathe, Mr. Kagan.
List somehow, and I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying this is like he's part of this, but it's just like when you start to put these things together, and you're like, he's buying up all this land. Then all of a sudden, and he's so
And China,
into
too.
the vaccine technology and stuff. It's like now food is producing things that are stopping animals from producing. There's egg shortages and stuff. It just seems too coincidental, in my opinion.
It reminds me like if you had like a big whiteboard, like someone's like trying to solve a crime, right? You've got like pieces on a board. Like, okay, wait a second. So all of these fires are happening at all these chicken producers. So we're killing all these chickens somehow. Why? Why are these fires breaking out of these food processing plants all across the country? Why are chickens being destroyed? And then why are these eggs not being produced anymore? And all of these farmers are reporting the same thing. With these tractor feed supplies and Purina and Nestle, these other things that people are reporting. So now look at this woman who says that this is the chickens telling us that something is wrong. Like a woman who is not menstruating. This is what she says. Listen.
Wow, that's
Is the commercial
maybe more
feed
than I
the
need to know.
reason so many people's chickens have not been laying at all?
Oh, it's the feed. In fact, I would go so far as to say that chickens are starving if you're feeding them commercial feed. Because, they tell you that if they stop laying eggs, you need to check the food, make sure that they're getting enough, because if they don't get enough food, then they're, obviously they're going to stop laying eggs. It's like when you have, a girl who stops eating, she's starving herself, right? And then her period stops. Kind of the same concept. At least that's how I read it. We didn't know there was anything wrong with our chickens. We thought the reason why they had, dropped in egg production was simply because it was winter. Until the day we decided to give them a bunch of table scraps that we had because we'd had a whole bunch of leftovers. And then the next day we had 14 eggs. It went from 1 egg a day between 9 chickens to 14. Just because we gave them table scraps. You've got to feed your chickens something else, because that commercial feed, I don't know what it is, but it's not food.
That's what we do. We have a lot of chickens here at the Redacted headquarters. And every morning we cook eggs. I cook eggs every morning for the kids.
So it's like they give us the disease. They figured out that the disease won't keep killing people if you eat eggs. So let's get rid of the eggs. And then you got this Gates guy wanting us to eat fake meat. Have I got that right? Oh, and the bugs. Okay, just checking.
Make breakfast, scrambled eggs, fried eggs. Made waffles this morning with eggs right from the chickens, and we feed them compost, so and chicken feed that we get, but mostly the compost. And we were starting to see a decline in our chicken production and the egg production when we were given the feed. So it's mostly we'll get like whether it's just the basic compost that we have from different scraps of food, and they love it. And then they're also free range, so they're walking around eating bugs. They're out running around the forest area that we have here, and
It's
they
also
love it.
well known in the United States. The majority of if you see corn in the United States anywhere, chances are it's feed corn and it's genetically modified corn. And we don't know what it's genetically modified with at this point. So it's like most of the corn and that the United States produces is going to animals. I mean, even I got in an argument with a company called BurgerFi because they said vegetarian fed animals and cows, and I was like, vegetarian fed, that could mean genetically modified corn. And what they said was they're grass-fed up until the point that they're taken to the slaughterhouse, and then to get fattened up at the slaughterhouse, they're fed grain, which means whatever these animals are eating, the genetically modified corn or whatever is in it, that's passed down to you when you eat that burger.
Right.
So I'm like very adamant about knowing what my meat is eating before I eat it. And it's getting harder and harder to figure
My
out.
meat
Oh, they
is
don't want you to
eating.
know about it. Now they're changing the classification of it. So don't even ask questions about genetic modified anymore. They don't even want that to be labeled anyway. They don't want you to know about it. They want to change those guidelines. You know, and that's what we're dealing with. So, you know, we talked about earlier, you can draw your own conclusions from these things. Okay? I'm not saying one way or the other that we have the answers here. I'm saying when studies start.
In this video, we're going to examine the leaked U.S. military document FM 3-39.40, otherwise known as the Field Manual for Internment and Resettlement Operations for U.S. Citizens.
For U.S. citizens. Get it? U.S.
The official U.S. military documents we are about to see were highly classified until 2013 when they were leaked to the public. In fact, if you look at the bottom of the cover page, you'll see just how secret this document was intended to be. Destruction notice. Destroy by any method that will prevent disclosure of content or reconstruction of the document. By this statement alone, it's obvious that we were never supposed to see what's inside. And that being said, let's take a look inside and see what we can find. Now, this document is 326 pages long, and we definitely don't have time to look at every single page. So I'll just go over some of the most relevant content. Feel free to read this document for yourself. There's a link to the full document in the description below. Alright, so keep in mind that this document was not just written for overseas operations. It clearly outlines internment operations on U.S. soil and with U.S. citizens. On page 38, quote, support to civil support operations. Civil support is the DoD support to U.S. civil authorities for domestic emergencies and for designated law enforcement and other activities. Civil support includes operations that address the consequences of natural or man-made disasters, accidents, terrorist attacks, and incidents in the U.S. and its territories. The internment relocation tasks performed in support of civil support operations are similar to those during combat operations, but the techniques and procedures are modified based on the special OE associated with operating within U.S. territory and according to the categories of individuals, primarily DCs. In this document, DC stands for Dislocated Civilian. To be housed in internment relocation facilities. During long-term internment relocation operations, state and federal agencies will operate within and around internment relocation facilities within the scope of their capabilities.
They're talking about American citizens, our own
Police commanders must closely coordinate and synchronize their efforts with them, especially in cases where civil authority and capabilities have broken down or been destroyed. Not only that, on page 146, it details the identification procedures of new prisoners, and that includes taking their social security numbers. Quote, identification 716. Individual identification photographs are taken of all prisoners. The prisoner's last name, first name, and middle initial.
Why would they be
placed on the
prisoners if
first
we're
line of the
Americans?
name board, and the prisoner's social security number is placed on the second line. A prisoner registration number may be added on the third line. 2 front and 2 profile pictures are taken of the prisoner. Fingerprints are obtained according to AR 190-47. Now that we've established that these operations were not only designed for overseas, but also designed for U.S. citizens on U.S. soil, would it surprise you to see that the United Nations is also involved in this? Page 23. Agencies concerned with internment and resettlement. External government involvement in IR missions, and IR means internment and resettlement, is a fact of life for military police organizations. Some government and government-sponsored entities that may be involved in IR missions include international agencies, the United Nations, International Committee of the Red Cross, International Organization of Migration, U.S. agencies, local U.S. Embassy, Department of Homeland Security.
I don't know about you, but this
Immigration
doesn't
and
sound
Customs
too
Enforcement,
American.
and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA. It goes into more detail about the United Nations in Chapter 1-47. The UN is involved in the entire spectrum of humanitarian assistance operations, from suffering prevention to
Does
relief
UN mean
operations.
like
Typically,
undo
UN
everything?
agencies establish independent networks to execute their humanitarian relief operations. The UN system delegates as much as possible to the agency's elements located in the field. Supervisory and support networks are traced from those field officers back to UN headquarters. Military planners must familiarize themselves with the UN objectives so that these UN objectives are considered in planning and executing military operations. So basically, the UN is there every step of the way, and these camps must be formulated around UN policies, according to this document. Now, let's go to page 56, where it goes into detail about psychological operations, or
What?
PSYOPs. The supporting IR PSYOP team has two missions that reduce the need to...
Now, this isn't science,
Figures.
but I did a poll around New York,
You know.
and what people believed about the Constitution shocked them. I think the U.S. is a crypto-fascist country.
What the?
Absolutely, already, period.
I think it needs to be amended. I mean, the founding fathers did not envision certain things like guns.
What?
I'm not a huge fan of the idea that people think they're more protected because they're carrying a gun.
The strict constitutionalists who believe that we should only look at it exactly as it was written in 1776 are completely misguided.
Wow, you're an idiot, man. Don't be a teacher,
A
please.
lot of the structure that exists was, in a way, naively constructed. I
What?
have a copy of Defending the Constitution here by
Alright,
the
defend that
Economics.
Constitution, Betty.
Inside
divert military police assets to maintain security in the IR facility. So basically, psychological operations are deployed in order to manipulate their detainees and make them more passive.
These are the
It goes
Fowl
into more
brothers, I
detail.
think, end
Quote,
times.
The PSYOP team develops PSYOP products that are designed to pacify and acclimate detainees or DCs to accept U.S. IR facility authority and regulations. PSYOP teams gain the cooperation of detainees or DCs to reduce the number of guards needed, identifies malcontents, trained agitators, and political leaders within the facility who
Sounds
may
like
try to
exactly what's
organize
going on right
resistance or
now.
create disturbances, develops and executes indoctrination programs to reduce or remove antagonistic attitudes. Did you catch that?
Yep.
Develops and executes indoctrination programs to reduce or remove antagonistic attitudes, otherwise known as brainwashing. Now, let's move on to page 84, where it talks about medical support. And this is where it starts to get a little scary, if you take into account the whole COVID-19 pandemic. Quote, medical personnel are required to identify, treat, and document existing medical conditions and injuries of detainees. Commanders must consider the following when establishing medical care at the internment facility. A credentialed healthcare professional examines detainees monthly and records their weight on a DA Form 2664-R. The detainee reporting system requires weight data from medical community. The general health of detainees, their nutrition and cleanliness are monitored during inspections. The detainees are examined for contagious diseases, especially tuberculosis, lice, louse-borne diseases, human immunodeficiency virus, which is HIV, and STDs. Now, COVID-19 would definitely fall into this category. It goes on to say, quote, all medical treatment facilities must provide immunizations for and isolation of detainees with communicable diseases.
Fuck.
Again, COVID-19 falls into this category. So basically what they're saying here is these facilities can be turned into a military quarantine with forced
Yep,
immunization.
as soon as they
Let's continue
take
here.
our guns away, they will.
Detainees who require a high level of care are transferred to military or civilian medical installations where the required treatment is available. Military police escort detainees to medical treatment facilities and remain with them until medical examinations
Sounds like Canada,
are
actually,
complete.
don't it?
So if you're really sick, they might send you to a hospital. However, you will have military police escorting you there and back. Alright, let's continue on. On page 115, it describes the serial number given to each detainee. Quote, internment serial numbers. The ISN, or internment serial number,
Didn't they do
is
that
the
with the-
DoD
didn't the
mandated
Nazis do that?
identification number used to account for and track detainees. Once an ISN is assigned, it is used on all documentation, including medical records. The ISN is generated by the Detainee Reporting System. The Detainee Reporting System is the only approved system for maintaining detainee accountability. It is the central data point system used for reporting to the national level and sharing detainee information with other authorized agencies. Here is a nice diagram showing what the ISN is comprised of. Now, some people may say that these camps are friendly in nature and will be used as some sort of humanitarian camp to help people in need.
Yeah,
well,
okay.
If it's a humanitarian camp, why would they need to use deadly force on people who try to escape? Page 238, quote, Level 5, deadly force, used as a last resort, when all lesser means have failed or would be impractical. Used to prevent death or serious injury to self or others, to prevent the theft, damage, or destruction of resources vital to national security or dangerous to other, or, and here's the big one, to terminate an active escape attempt. So basically, deadly force is authorized to stop an escape attempt. That's everything we need to know right there. They also go into detail about how these camps should be laid out. There's many diagrams in this document, and we're going to take a look at this one right here. This diagram shows 3 rows of barbed wire fence.
Almost looks like the Walmarts a couple years ago we saw.
Now, it should be obvious to anybody watching this that these camps are not humanitarian relief centers, but rather prisons. Prisons meant for large populations of U.S. citizens. And this video just scratched the surface of this nearly 400
You can thank the Clintons, by the way, and a lot of people like that for this type of crap.
What are your thoughts on this document?
Agenda 2030.
And tell us what you think. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget to hit that like button. And until next time, thank you all for watching, and God bless you all.
Hold on. End Times Productions. I would definitely subscribe.